Hey, what's going on, everyone? Representing USA, International, Long Island, aka Strong Island, Canada, and the five spots of Brooklyn, Bronx, Manhattan, Staten Island, and Queens. This is your man G Money Stacks, aka the Gregonator, YouTuber, host with the most, misunderstood lonely nomad, unstoppable independent podcaster, and rookie podcaster of Laurelton, Queens, New York. And you're rocking and hanging with the 92nd episode of Meticulous Vibe Juice Podcast. And we got a great show for you today. Today's episode is all about Thor. And for the most part, we are live and direct from StreamYard and YouTube. And alongside of myself is the Instagram live feed. Make sure you turn your notifications on the gram of Meticulous Vibe Juice Podcast, which is the same name as the YouTube channel pages, where you could grab that subscribe button for me so you could actually, you know, tap that noni bell so you can be reminded when the show goes in the air via live stream. Leave a like and a comment along with the episodes, including the ones that's being discussed, especially music artists, TV shows, movies, games, and whatnot. And also stay tuned for more video content, upcoming episodes and previous episodes. And make sure you catch up on the episodes in case you miss any of them on the YouTube channel page and audio streaming platforms that I'll talk about at the end of the show. All right. and let's all right, so let's get started with a different segment this time is the Chillax Man Cave Popcorn Map. Chillax Man Cave Popcorn Lounge. So here it is. Today's episode is all about Thor. All right. So before I get started on the, the segment right here, overall, mentally, physically, and spiritually, I am doing all right. I am still celebrating the accomplishment of episode 200 of my other show, Off the Meat Rack Chains New York podcast, and it really actually feels good to actually move the way you move in terms of your creativity and ideas and stuff. So yeah, overall, I'm feeling pretty good though. You know what I mean? So, all right. So, without further ado, we're gonna get into the Thor movies today. So here it is. Okay. So Thor is a 2011 American superhero film based on the Marvel Comics character of the same name, produced by Marvel Studios and distributed by Paramount Pictures. It is the fourth film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It was directed by Kenneth um, Branagh, written by the writing team of Ashley Edward Miller and Zach Stentz, along with Don Payne, and stars Chris Hemsworth as the title character alongside Natalie Portman, Tom Hiddleston, Stellan Skarsgård, Ferrari, Ray Stevenson, Idris Elba, Kat Dennings, Renee Russo, and Anthony Hopkins. After reigniting a dormant war, Thor is banished from Asgard to Earth, stripped of his powers and his hammer, as his brother Loki plots to take the Asgardian throne. Thor must prove himself worthy. Um, Give me 1 second. Hold on. All right. Okay. And all right. So the budget for this movie was 150 to 150 million dollars. And in the box office it made 449.3 million dollars. Sam Raimi first developed the concept of the film adaptation based on Thor in 1991, but soon abandoned the project, leaving it in development hell for several years. During this time, the rights were picked up by various film studios excuse me, until Marvel signed Proto, Mark Protosevich to develop the project in 2006 and planned to finance and release it through Paramount. Matthew Vaughn was assigned to direct the film for a tentative 2010 release. However, after Vaughn was released from his holding deal in 2008, Bernard was approached and the film's release was rescheduled to 2011. The main characters were cast in 2009, and principal photography took place in California and New Mexico from January to May 2010. The film was converted to 3D in post production. Thor premiered in Sydney on April 17, 2011, and was released in the United States on May 6th as part of Phase 1 of the MCU. It received generally positive reviews from critics and was a financial success, earning $449.3 million worldwide. Three sequels have been released: Thor The Dark World in 2013, which I'll get to next, along with Thor Ragnarok and Thor Love and Thunder. I'll get to those next. Um, okay, so yeah, I'm not gonna get into the music. Well, yeah, let's get into the music aspect. So the film score was written by composer Patrick Doyle, a frequent collaborator of Bernard. Doyle described Thor as the most commercially high profile film I have done since Frankenstein, adding that the composing process had the challenge of trying to find a tone that fits the duality of Asgard and Earth. Thus, Doyle and Bernard had frequent discussions on the musical direction, with the director suggesting a contemporary feel and having a balance between the music and grand images that were not in any way hyperbolized. And the composer, in turn, implementing a strong sense of melody, which he responds to in my work, as Doyle declared that his own Celtic background made him familiar with Norse mythology. An old Celtic folk song also provided the inspiration for Thor's um, Let Motive. A soundtrack album was released by Buena Vista Records in April 2011. The film also features a song by the Foo Fighters, Walk, in both a scene where a powerless store shares some Boilermakers with Selvig in a roadhouse. And the film's closing credits, Marvel President Kevin Feige stated that Walk was a last minute addition that the crew felt had these eerie, appropriate lyrics and themes upon hearing it. Bernard, in particular, thought that these lyrics about learning to walk again were appropriate of a movie about redemption, learning to be a hero. All right, we go to reception. So, box office, Thor grossed $181 million in the United States and Canada and $268.3 million in other territories for a worldwide total of $449.3 million. It was the 15th highest grossing film of 2011. Thor earned $25.5 million on its opening day in the United States and Canada, including $3.3 million from Thursday previews, for a total weekend gross of $65.7 million. $62 million of the gross came from IMAX 3D, while 60% of the gross was from 3D screenings. It became the 10th highest grossing film of 2011 in the United States and Canada, and the highest grossing comic book film from August 2011. Um, Thor's opening in Australia generated $5.8 million and placing second behind Universal Pictures Fast Five. The film's box office was just 1% more than Iron Man opening in Australia in 2008, Marvel's most popular release at the time. The following week, Thor opened in 56 markets and took in $89.2 million through the weekend. The film's highest grossing markets were the United Kingdom, $22.5 million, Australia, $20.1 million, and Mexico, $19.5 million. Critical response. The review aggregator Rotten Tomatoes reported an approval rating of 77% with an average score of 6.7 out of 10 based on 291 reviews. The website's consensus reads a dazzling blockbuster that tempers its sweeping scope with wit, humor, and human drama. Thor is mighty Marvel entertainment. Metacritic assigned a weighted average score of 57 out of 100, based on 40 critics, indicating mixed or average reviews. Audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of B plus on an A plus to F scale. Richard Coopers of Variety stated in quote, Thor delivers the goods so long as butt is being as long as so long as butt is being kicked and family conflict is playing out in a celestial dimensions, but is less thrilling during the Norse warrior gods' rather brief banishment on Earth. Megan Lehman of the Hollywood Reporter wrote, "The hammer hurling god of thunder kicks off this superhero summer with a bang." In the Chicago Sun-Times, Richard Roper liked the film thanks in large part of a charming, funny, and winning performance from Australian actor Chris Hemsworth in the title role. Thor is the most entertaining superhero debut since the original Spider-Man. Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times gave it a negative review, stating Thor is a failure as a movie, but a success as marketing. An illustration of the ancient carnival tactic of telling the rubes anything to get them into the tent. A.O. Scott of the New York Times disliked the film, calling it an example of the program triumph of commercial calculation over imagination. Kenneth Turan of the Los Angeles Times had mixed feelings, describing the film as an aesthetic standoff between predictable elements and unexpected ones. Turan praised the performances of Hemsworth, Hopkins, and Alba, but found the special effects inconsistent and the Earth storyline derivative. All right, so Teen Choice Awards. Um, Chris Hemsworth got a nomination for Choice Movie Breakout Male, it, and for Scream Awards, the Ultimate Scream Best Fantasy Movie. Thor got a nomination for those categories, and Chris Hemsworth as Thor got a nomination for Best Superhero. Jamie Alexander with a nomination for Best Supporting Actress, and of course, um, breakout performance female Jamie Alexander again. Breakout performance male Chris Hemsworth, Tom Hiddleston, and of course, Thor got a nomination for Best Effects, Best Comic Book Movie ever. The People's Choice Awards. Thor and Chris Hemsworth got a nomination for favorite action movie, favorite movie superhero. Visual Effects Society Awards. Um, Heimdall's Observatory, Pierre Buffin, Audrey Ferreira, Yoel Godo, Dominique Vital all got nominations for Outstanding Creative Environment in a Live Action Feature Motion Picture. Xavier Allard, Pierre Buffin, and Nicholas um, Chevalier all got nominations for Outstanding Virtual Cinematography in a Live Action Feature Motion Picture. In 2012, Tom Hiddleston and Thor won um, for Best Male Newcomer, Best Sci-Fi Fantasy, and of course, Thor also got a nomination for the Art of 3D presented by Real D. MTV Movie Awards, Thor got a nomination for Best Hero, and also Thor got a nomination for Best Fantasy Film. Tom Hiddleston also got a nomination for Best Supporting Actor. Bo Welch got a nomination for Best um, Production Design for the Saturn Awards. Alexandra Byrne won the award for Best Costume. Now we go to another sequel, which is Dark World. Okay, Thor: The Dark World is a 2013 superhero American superhero film based on the Marvel Comics character Thor, produced by Marvel Studios and distributed by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures. It is the sequel to Thor 2011 and the eighth film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The film was directed by Alan Taylor from a screenplay by Christopher Yost and the writing team of Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely. It stars Chris Hemsworth as Thor alongside Natalie Portman, Tom Hiddleston, Anthony Hopkins, Stellan Skarsgård, Idris Elba, Christopher Eccleston, um, and Adewale Akinnoye, Agbaje, um, Kat Dennings, Ray Stevenson, Zachary Levi, uh, Tadanobu Asano, Jamie Alexander, and Renee Russo. In the film, Thor and Loki team up to save the Nine Realms from the Dark Elves. So the budget is between 150 to $170 million. Development of the sequel to Thor began in April 2011 when producer Kevin Feige announced plans for it to follow the MCU crossover film The Avengers. In July, Thor director Kenneth Branagh withdrew from the sequel. Brian Kirk and Patty Jenkins were considered to replace him as director before Taylor was hired in January 2012. The supporting cast filled out in August 2012 with the hiring of Eccleston and Akinnuye um, Ag- Aberhay, Aberjace as the film's villains. Filming took place from September to December 2012, primarily in Surrey, England, as well as in Iceland and London. Taylor wanted the film to be more grounded than Thor, inspired by his work on Game of Thrones. He hired Carter Burwell to compose the score, but Marvel replaced Burwell with Brian Taylor. Thor, The Dark World premiered at the Odeon of Leicester Square in London on October 22nd, 2013, and was released in the United States on November 8th as part of Phase 2 of the MCU. The film was a commercial success, grossing over $644 million worldwide and becoming the 10th highest grossing film of 2013. It received praise for the performances of Hemsworth and Hiddleston visual effects and action sequences, but was criticized for its generic villain and lack of depth. Retrospectively, Taylor has expressed dissatisfaction with the film, stating that Marvel substantially altered it from his original vision during post production. A sequel directed by Taika Waititi, Thor Ragnarok, was released in 2017, and while a fourth film, Thor Love and Thunder, was released in 2022. Okay, so let's see. So the music in August 2012, Patrick Doyle said that he had discussions with the director about potentially returning to score the film. By April 2013, Carter Burwell had been hired to compose the score, but by the following month, he left the film over creative differences. In June 2013, Marvel hired Brian Tyler, who scored Iron Man 3, to replace Burwell. Tyler said the previous film had an attitude and was grounded in limitations, whereas the Thor film allowed for all out regal themes that could be as epic as I could make them. The composer described The Dark World as science fiction, meaning classic medieval war, leading to a score that drew from works of both genres such as Star Wars and Lord of the Rings. Azam Ali is a featured vocalist on the score. The soundtrack was released digitally on October 28th, 2013. All right, let's get to the receptions. Thor the Dark World earned $206.4 million in North America and $438.4 million in other markets for a worldwide total of $644.8 million. It surpassed the gross of its predecessor after just 19 days of its release. Deadline Hollywood calculated the net worth profit of the film to be $139.4 million when factoring together all expenses and revenues for the film. Um, Thor: The Dark World made an estimated $7.1 million in Thursday night showings, more than double the midnight gross of its predecessor. On Friday, November 8th, 2013, the film topped the box office with $31.9 million, of course, including Thursday night earnings, which is 25% higher than the original film's opening day gross. Um, yeah, that's interesting. Hold on a second. Yes. Um, Through Sunday, the film remained at the number one spot with $85.7 million, which is a 30% increase over its predecessor opening weekend. This was the largest November opening for a film distributed by Disney, surpassing The Incredibles. Thor: The Dark World topped the box office in North America during its first two weekends, before being overtaken by The Hunger Games: Catching Fire in its third weekend. On its midweek opening day of Wednesday, October 30th, 2013, Thor: The Dark World earned $8.2 million from 33 territories, including the United Kingdom and France, where it opened higher than its predecessor. During its first 3 days, the film earned $45.2 million, and by the end of the weekend, after expanding into three more territories, it totaled $109.4 million over 5 days, finishing in first place in all 36 countries. It's the largest. Its largest openings were recorded in China, 21.0 million dollars, the United Kingdom $13.8 million, and France $9.94 million. It topped the box office outside North America on its first three weekends of release. In total earnings, its largest markets are China, $55.3 million, Russia and the CIS, $35.7 million, Brazil, $27.7 million, and the United Kingdom, $26.2 million. Now, for the critical response, the review aggregator Rotten Tomatoes reported an approval rating of 66%, with an average score of 6.2 out of 10 based on 285 reviews. The website's consensus reads, "It may not be the finest film to come from the Marvel Universe, but Thor the Dark World still offers plenty of the humor and high stakes action that fans have come to expect." It was the lowest rated MCU film on Rotten Tomatoes until the release of Eternals in 2021. Metacritic, which uses a weighted average, assigned a score of 54 out of 100 based on 44 reviews, indicating mixed or average reviews. Audiences polled by Cinema Score gave the film an A minus average based on a grading scale ranging from A plus to F. Ben Child of The Guardian said, "Thanks to Hiddleston and Hemsworth's impressive collective charisma, Thor the Dark World is far from a franchise killer." Justin Chang of Variety wrote, "This robust and personal visual effects showpiece proves buoyant, buoyant and unpretentious enough to offset its stew of otherwise derivative fantasy action elements." Alonzo Duralde of The Rap said, "Thor the Dark World delivers the goods, action, otherworldly grandiosity, grandiosity, romance, humor above and beyond its predecessor." Simon Abrams, writing for RogerEbert.com, said, "There's just enough tension and humor in Thor the Dark World to make the film's otherwise listless proceedings worth watching, but only just." Conversely, Tim Roby of the Daily Telegraph said, "It feels entirely made by committee, the definition of house style, without a personal stamp in sight." Leslie Felperin of the Hollywood Reporter said, "Although director Alan Taylor manages to get things going properly for the final battle in London, the long stretches before that on Asgard and the other branches of of Yggdrasil are a drag, like filler episodes of Game of Thrones, but without the narrative complexity, mythical heft, or all pervading sexiness." Michael Phillips of the Los Angeles Times described Thor the Dark World as having the same old threats of galaxy annihilation spiced with fairly entertaining fish out of water jokes. Jeanette Katsos of the New York Times said, "The battle scenes are as lacking in heat and coherence as the central love story." Taylor um, expressed dissatisfaction with the finished film and blamed its mixed reception on changes Marvel Studios made during post production, which he felt conflicted with his creative vision. In 2015, he called working on The Dark World a particularly wrenching experience and said in 2021 that the experience made him hesitant to continue directing. Taylor expressing interest in creating a director's cut similar to Zack Snyder's Justice League 2021, though he observed that Marvel was likely not interested in it. And we go to the accolades. The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences placed Thor: The Dark World on its shortlist of potential nominees for the Academy for Best Visual Effects, but ultimately did not nominate it. Oh wow. Um, IGN Best of 2013 got a nomination for IGN Best of 2013. Thor: The Dark World got a nomination for Best Comic Book Adaptation Movie. People's Choice Awards Thor: The Dark World got a nomination for favorite year and movie. ABFF Hollywood Awards. Idris Elba also for Pacific Rim and Mandela Long Walk to Freedom got a nomination for Artist of the Year. Empire Awards. Tom Hiddleston also got a nomination for Best Supporting Actor. Thor: The Dark World got a nomination Best Comic to Film Motion Picture. Tom Hiddleston got a nomination for Best Supporting Actor, and this is the Saturn Awards. Wendy Partridge got a nomination for Best Costume. Karen Cohen, David White, Elizabeth Wyani, um, Giorgio also got a nomination for Best Makeup. Jake Morrison, Paul Corbill, Mark Breakspear also got a nomination for Best Special Visual Effects. Chris Hemsworth got a nomination for Best Shirtless Performance and Best Hero for the MTV Movie Awards. And of course, Loki got a nomination for Favorite Character. So we go to the Golden Trailer Awards. Thor: The Dark World got a nomination for Best TV Spot. Um, Idris Elba also for Mandela Long Walk to Freedom um, got a nomination for Best Actor of the BET Awards. Thor: The Dark World got a nomination for Choice Movie Sci-Fi Fantasy. Chris Hemsworth got a nomination for Choice Movie Actor Sci-Fi Fantasy. And of course, Natalie Portman got a nomination for Choice Movie Actress Sci-Fi Fantasy. All right, now we go to Thor Ragnarok. Um, Now, third Thor Ragnarok is the 2017 American superhero film based on the Marvel Comics character Thor, produced by Marvel Studios and distributed by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures. It is the sequel to Thor and Thor: The Dark World, 2013, and is the 17th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The film was directed by Taika Waititi from a screenplay by Eric Pearson and the writing team of Craig Kyle and Christopher Yost, and stars Chris Hemsworth as Thor alongside Tom Hiddleston, Kate Blanchett, Idris Elba, Goldblum, Tessa Thompson, Carl Urban, Mark Ruffalo, and Anthony Hopkins. In Thor Ragnarok, Thor must escape the alien planets Sarskar, Sarskar in time to save Asgard from Hela and the impending Ragnarok. Okay. The budget was for this movie is $180 million. Um, a third Thor film was confirmed in January 2014 when Kyle and Yost began work on the screenplay. The involvement of Hemsworth and Hiddleston was announced that October. Waititi joined the film as director a year later after Thor: The Dark World director Alan Taylor chose not to return. Ruffalo joined the cast, reprising the role of Hulk from previous MCU films, which allowed elements of the 2006 storyline on Planet Hulk to be adapted to Ragnarok. Ragnarok. Um, the rest of the cast, including Blanchett as Hela, was confirmed in May 2016. Pearson's involvement revealed at the start of filming that July. Principal photography took place in um, Brisbane and Sydney, Australia, with the film also having exclusive use of Village Roadshow Studios in Oxenford, concluding in October 2016. Thor Ragnarok premiered in Los Angeles on October 10th, 2017, and was released in the United States on November 3rd, 2017, as part of Phase 3 of the MCU. The Film received praise for its acting and Watiti's direction, as well as the action sequences, visual effects, um, musical score, and humor, with many critics considering it to be the best installment of the Thor franchise. It grossed $854 million, becoming the highest grossing film of the series and the ninth highest grossing film of 2017. One moment. A sequel, Thor Love and Thunder, was released on July 8th, 2022. That's next. Now we go to the music. By August 2016, Mark Mothersbaugh was hired to score the film. The, the synthesized score is influenced by the work of Jean Michael Jarre. Um, Watiti stated he would have asked the band Queen to work on the soundtrack for the film if their lead singer Freddie Mercury was still alive. Excuse me. Because the film is a cool, bold, colorful, cosmic adventure, which would have suited the feel of the band. Additional music featured in the film include "Immigrant Song" by Led Zeppelin and "Pure Imagination" from the film Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory in 1971. Patrick Doyle's themes from Thor and Brian Tyler's themes from The Dark World and um, Avengers Age of Ultron, as well as Joe Harnell's The Lonely Man from the Incredible Hulk series, are also used in the film. Hollywood Records released the film soundtrack digitally on October 20th, 2017, and physically on November 10th, 2017. Now we go to the reception. Thor Ragnarok grossed $315.1 million in the United States and Canada and $538.9 million in other territories for a worldwide total of $854 million. In September 2017, a survey from Fandango indicated that Ragnarok was the most anticipated fall film. On the weekend of November 3rd, 2017, the film earned $25.4 million from IMAX showings, surpassing Doctor Strange as the largest for a November weekend. Yes. Yes. The film had earned $650.1 million globally, surpassing the total grosses for Thor $449.3 million and Thor: The Dark World $644.6 million by the end of its weekend. It became the ninth highest grossing film of 2017. Deadlight Hollywood calculated the net profit of the film to be $174.2 million, accounting for its production budget, prints and advertising, talent participation, and other costs, against box office grosses and ancillary revenue from home media, placing it on eighth on their list of 2017's most valuable blockbusters. Thor Ragnarok earned $46.8 million on its opening day in the United States and Canada, including $14.5 million from Thursday night previews, and had a total weekend gross of $122.7 million, which was the top film for the weekend, the sixth best November opening, and the largest opening for all Thor films. IMAX contributed $12.2 million, which was the second best IMAX opening of 2017 and its third best November opening. The film's earnings on Sunday, $32.1 million, was the second best Sunday in November after The Hunger Games Catching Fire 2013, $34.5 million. The film had been projected to gross 100 to $125 million in its opening weekend. Ragnarok remained the number one film in its second weekend, having earned a total of $211.6 million, which surpassed the entire runs of Thor $181 million and the Thor and the Dark World 206.4 million. In its third weekend, Thor Ragnarok fell to third at the box office and fourth in its fourth and fifth weekends. The film surpassed its projected total domestic gross of $280 million in its fifth weekend with $291.4 million. Thor Ragnarok was fifth and in its sixth weekend and seventh in its seventh weekend. The final weekend, it remained in the top 10. Outside the United States and Canada, the film opened in 36 markets in its first weekend, ranking first in all and earning $109.1 million, $6 million of which came from 189 IMAX screens. Yeah, the United Kingdom opening $16.2 million was the best October opening for a non-James Bond film. Yeah. South Korea, $15.7 million, Australia, $8.4 million, Brazil, $8.1 million, Indonesia, $5.5 million, Taiwan, $5.4 million, the Philippines, $3.8 million, Malaysia, $3.5 million, New Zealand, Vietnam, Argentina, Colombia, Chile, Bosnia, Bulgaria, Croatia, and South Africa had the best October opening weekend ever, while France, $7.7 million, had the second best. Brazil also had the third best debut for an MCU film, while New Zealand's opening was the biggest of 2017. In its second weekend, Ragnarok opened at number one in 19 more markets, with the largest November opening ever in China. $56.3 million, including $6 million from 446 IMAX screens. Mexico, $10.8 million. Germany, $8.9 million, and India, $5.5 million. It also remained at number one in many existing markets. The film earned an additional $13.2 million from 788 IMAX screens, the best November opening. In its third weekend, the film remained at number one in over 30 countries, and it became the highest grossing superhero film in the Czech Republic. By its fifth weekend, Ragnarok had become the highest grossing superhero film in Central and Eastern Europe. As of December 10th, 2017, the film's largest markets were China, $112 million, the United Kingdom, $40.4 million, and South Korea, $35.1 million. The review aggregator Rotten Tomatoes reported an approval rating of 93% with an average score of 7.6 out of 10 based on 439 reviews. The website's critical consensus reads exciting, funny, and above all fun. Thor Ragnarok is a colorful cosmic adventure that sets a new standard for its franchise and the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Metacritic assigned a weighted average score of 74 out of 100 based on 51 critics, indicating generally favorable reviews Audiences polled by Cinema Score gave the film an average grade of A on an A plus to F scale, the best of the Thor series, while post-track reported filmgoers gave it a 90% overall positive score and an 85% definite recommend. Hmm. Okay. Sherry Linden of the Hollywood Reporter praised Watiti's handling of the Clash of Worlds CGI extravaganza, particularly for the lighter tone he brought, with even the story central bad guys being silly fun, hammed to the hilt by Kate Blanchett and Jeff Goldblum. Alonzo Duralde of the Rat Road, both the banter and the fighting, it should be noticed, are excellent. So, whether you go to superhero movies for the glossy escapism or the pulse pounding action, you'll get your large shoulders worth. Peter Travers of Rolling Stones rated the film 3 stars out of 4, described it as the most fun you'll ever have at a Marvel movie, while praising the film's changing tone and direction, comparing it to um, favorably to Guardians of the Galaxy. The San Francisco Chronicles Mick LaSalle lauded the performances of Hemsworth, Hiddleston, Blanchett, Thompson, Goldblum, and Ruffalo, feeling the film has confidence in its characters and in its own invention, and so it avoids repetition and stays fresh. Richard Roper of the Chicago Sun-Times similarly praised the film, calling the performances of the ensembles cast outstanding and Watiti's direction goofy and campy, marvelous, self-referential. He also said the soundtrack that was used in a climatic battle sequence, particularly Led Zeppelin's "Immigrant Song," was perfectly synced. Matt Zola Zeist of RogerEbert.com gave the film 3 out of 4 stars positivity, comparing Hemsworth's performance to Cary Grant. Hemsworth's charisma holds Thor Ragnarok together whenever it threatens to spin apart. Justin Chang of the Los Angeles Times praised Blanchett's performance of Hela, drawing a comparison of the portrayal of her character to other iconic villains such as Mal- Maleficent and Chonabog. And the film's similar themes and tone to Flash Gordon, Star Wars, and Willie and the Chocolate Factory. The Daily Telegraph's Robbie Collin gave the film 4 out of 5 stars, hailed it as one of Marvel's best films to date, while commending the performances and describing Mothersbaug's musical score as turbocharged. Michael Phillips of the Chicago Tribune commended the performances of Hiddleston and Thompson as being wonderfully matched. He also noted a similar directing style of Waititi to Edgar Wright's um, parodic work and labeled the film as unusually lively and buoyant, while acknowledging the effect of a Marvel fatigue factor towards the audiences. Peter DeBruge of Variety called the movie preposterous, but praised the Goldblum's performance. Stephanie's Zachariah of the Time magazine stated negatively that Thor Ragnarok is packed tight with zooming space vehicles and noisy thunder battles, but the movie's extravagant access is more narcotizing, narcotizing than energizing. Zachariah further added that even poor Thor seems lost in all of it, and he's supposed to be a star while criticizing the film's visual effects as being an instance of fun overkill and a special effects coma. Um, Manola Dargis of the New York Times called the story an uninteresting thicket of brawls, machinations, and useful coincidences, but did feel that Hemsworth looks happier and far more relaxed in Ragnarok than he did in the previous Thor vehicles, which is perhaps Mr. Watiti's truest achievement here. Some critics claim that Thor Ragnarok conceals sophisticated commentary under its comedic presentation, specifically on themes of colonial history and indigenous people. Key points in the discourse include Watiti's on indigenous uh, Maori heritage, Asgard's bloody history, and Odin's whitewashing of it as reviewed by Hela. Scrapper 142's burial in alcohol of her ethnic identity as a Valkyrie, and the Grandmaster um, euphemizing of slaves as prisoners with jobs. Okay, we go to the accolades right here. Um, okay, accolades. All right. Taika Waititi got a nomination for the Washington for Best Captured Motion Capture Performance for the Washington D.C. Film Critics Award. Golden Tomato Awards. Thor Ragnarok got 10th place for Best Wide Release 2017, and it also got third place for Best Comic Book Graphic Novel Movie 2017. Critics' Choice Awards. So for Thor Ragnarok, he got a nomination for Best Action Movie. Chris Hemsworth got a nomination for Best Actor in a Comedy. Best Visual Effects for Thor Ragnarok got a nomination. Um, the NAACP Awards. Excuse me. Tessa Thompson got a nomination for Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Motion Picture. Now we go to the Visual Effects Society Awards. So Hubert Maston, Arthur Moody, um, Adam Pashke, Adam Pashke, Casey Schatz for Valkyrie's Flashback for got a nomination for Outstanding Virtual Cinematography in a Photo Real Project. Gavin McKenzie, David Simpson, Owen Carroll, Mark Goslow for Bridge Brittle got a nomination for Outstanding Compositing in a Photoreal Feature. And we go to the Costume Designers Guild Awards. Mayes C. Rubio got a nomination for Excellence in Sci-Fi Fantasy Film. Thor Ragnarok got a nomination for Best Film. And it also got Best Sci-Fi Fantasy. Taika Tahiti um, got a nomination for Best Director. Tessa Thompson got a nomination for Best Female Newcomer for the Empire Awards. Thor Ragnarok got a nomination for Best Production Design, Best Visual Effects. Mayes C. Rubio got a nomination for Best Costume Design. Thor Ragnarok also got a nomination for Best Makeup and hairstyling. Taika Waititi also got a nomination for Scene Stealer. Chris Hemsworth versus Mark Ruffalo got a nomination for Best Fight. And we go to the Saturn Awards. Thor Ragnarok got a nomination for Best Comic to Motion Picture Release. Tessa Thompson got a nomination for Best Supporting Actress in a Film. Eric Pearson, Craig Kyle, Christopher Yost, Taika Waititi got a nomination for Best Dramatic Presentation Long Form for Hugo Awards. Thor Ragnarok got a nomination for Choice Sci-Fi Movie. Chris Hemsworth won the award for for Choice Sci-Fi. And Mark Ruffalo got a nomination for movie actor for the Teen Choice Awards. Um, Tessa Thompson got a nomination for Choice Sci-Fi Movie Actress. Kate Blanchett got a nomination for Choice Movie Villain. Tom Hiddleston and Taika Waititi both got a nomination for Choice Scene Stealer. And of course, Kyle McCullough, Alexis Wat, um, Alexis Watch Brought, Ben Locke, Harry Bardick, all got nominations for Outstanding Visual Effects Feature Film for Hollywood Professional Association. And of course, lastly, hold on. Of course, last but not least, Thor: Love and Thunder. Thor: Love and Thunder is a 2022 American superhero film based on Marvel Comics featuring the character Thor, produced by Marvel Studios and distributed by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures. It is the sequel to Thor: Ragnarok and the 29th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The film is directed by Taika Waititi, who co-wrote the script with Jennifer Caton, um, Caton Robinson, and stars Chris Hemsworth as Thor alongside Christian Bale, Tessa Thompson, Jamie Alexander, Waititi, Russell Crowe, and Natalie Portman. In um, in the film, Thor attempts to find inner peace, but must return to action and recruit Valkyrie, um, Korg, and Jane Foster, who is now the Mighty Thor, to stop Gore and God Butcher from eliminating all gods. So the budget for this film is $250 million. Um, Hemsworth and Waititi had discussed plans for a sequel to Ragnarok by January 2018. Love and Thunder was announced in July 2019, with Hemsworth, Waititi, and Thompson all set to return, as well as Portman, who did not appear in Ragnarok. Waititi wanted to differentiate Love and Thunder from Ragnarok, seeking to make a romance film and 1980s inspired adventure. He adapted elements from Jason Aaron's run on the Mighty Thor comic book, which sees Foster take on the mantle and powers of Thor while under treatment for um, cancer. Robertson joined to contribute to the script in February 2020, and further casting was revealed later that year, including the appearance of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Production was expected to begin in late 2020, but was delayed by the COVID-19 slamdemic. Filming ultimately began in January 2021 in Sydney, Australia, and concluded at the beginning of June. Thor: Love and Thunder premiered at the El Captain Theater in Hollywood on June 23rd, 2022, and was released in the United States on July 8th as part of Phase 4 of the MCU. The film received a mixed critical response with praise for its lighthearted nature, visuals, and the performances of Bale and Portman, while criticism was aimed at the screenplay and tonal inconsistency, with many critics deeming the film inferior to Ragnarok. Love and Thunder has grossed over $760 million, making it the sixth highest grossing film of 2022. All right, so we go to the music here. In December 2021, Michael um Giacchino revealed that he would be scoring the film. He previously scored Doctor Strange and the MCU Spider-Man trilogy for Marvel Studios, as well as Waititi's previous film, Jojo Rabbit, a soundtrack album featuring um, Giacchino's original themes, along with the score composed by him and Nami Mellomad, was released by Hollywood Records and Marvel Music on July 6, 2022. The single Mama's Got a Brand New Hammer. The film's main suit was released on June 30th, but TD wanted the music to reflect the same aesthetic of the film with its bombastic, loud, colorful palette. Sweet Child of Mine by Guns N' Roses is featured in the film, given Guns N' Roses is one of Ratidi's favorite bands, and helped reflect the sort of crazy adventure that we're visually presenting. The song was also used in the film's marketing. The film features the song Rainbow in the Dark by Dio, according to Wendy Dio, widow of band member Ronnie James Dio. Okay, reception. Um, Thor: Love and Thunder grossed $343.3 million in the United States and Canada, and $417.4 million in other territories, for a worldwide total of $760.7 million. It is the sixth highest grossing film of 2022. The film's opening weekend earned three $303.3 million globally, of which IMAX contributed $23 million, making it the third highest July debut of all time for the format. In the United States and Canada, the film was projected to gross 167 million dollars from 4,375 theaters in its opening weekend, along with the gross of 345 to 420 million dollars. The film earned $69.5 million on its first day, which included $29 million from Thursday night previews. The marked the second highest opening day and preview night of 2022, behind fellow MCU film Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, as well as the fifth highest opening day ever for an MCU film. Its opening weekend earned $144.2 million, which was the largest debut of the Thor franchise, the 12th largest for the MCU, excuse me, and the third largest for 2022, behind Multiverse of Madness, $187.4 million, and Jurassic World Dominion, $145 million. Of the $144.2 million figure, over $13.8 million came from IMAX, making it the fifth highest July debut of all time for the format domestically. Love and Thunder was also the sixth film in the COVID-19 slamdemic to earn over $10 million theater admissions in its opening weekend. In its second weekend, grossed $46.6 million, a decline of nearly 68%, representing one of the MCU's largest sophomore weekend drops. Deadline Hollywood attributed to its cinema score, grade, and generally mixed reception from critics and audiences. In its third weekend, the film made $22.6 million, finishing second behind newcomer Nope. Outside of North America, Love and Thunder grossed $15.7 million from 17 markets on its opening day, surpassing the first day overall results of Thor Ragnarok by 39%. Its weekend gross was $159.2 million from 47 markets, making it the FCU's ninth largest overseas debut ever and the third largest for any Hollywood film released in the COVID-19 slamdemic. It surpassed Ragnarok's opening by 19%. IMAX contributed $9.2 million to the weekend, becoming the third largest July debut ever overseas. Yes, it also set several slam-demic box office milestones in its opening weekend, marking the second highest slam-demic opening in Australia, New Zealand, and the Philippines, while earning the third highest in numerous territories, including Brazil, Italy, Thailand, Singapore, and Argentina. As of July 24, 2022, the film's largest markets are the United Kingdom, $31.5 million, Australia, $25.5 million, Mexico, $23.2 million, South Korea, $22.3 million, and Brazil, $17.2 million. Okay, critical response here. The review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes reported an approval rating of 64% with an average rating of 6.4 out of 10 based on 423 reviews. The site's critics consensus reads, in some ways, Thor Love and Thunder feels like Ragnarok Redux, but overall it offers enough fast-paced fun to make this worthy addition to the MCU. On Metacritic, the film has a weighted average score of 57 out of 100, based on 64 critics, indicating mixed or average reviews. Audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of B plus on an A plus to F scale. And Post Track reported 77% of audiences members gave it a positive score, with 63% saying they would definitely recommend it. In early reactions to the film, Screen Rant noted that the performances from Christian Bale and Natalie Portman were praised. Owen Gleiberman of Variety said, there are many words to describe Thor Love and Thunder, stating comedy is all part of the package that made Ragnarok such a genuine Marvel wildflower. Lieberman wrote that the film sustains its freshness to the end, although it started with a more awkward first act with the Guardians of the Galaxy. He also praised Gore's characterization, a powerful introduction, and concluded the review by saying he felt moved by the end. David Ehrlich of IndieWire praised the film for its light tone and humorous moments, writing that Taika Waititi continues to brighten up the Thor movies with his own flavor of wackiness, which is as welcome here as it was grating in Jojo Rabbit. However, he noted that the film is clouded by its uncertain place in the universe from the moment it starts. Nick Allen at RogerEbert.com gave the film 3 out of 4 stars, stating that it was more or less a victory lap for all that Ratiti achieved with his previous Marvel film. The often hilarious, rousing, and plainly refreshing Thor Ragnarok. And while it was too many familiar flourishes and jokes, this entertaining sequel is still a force for good, with enough visual ambition and heart in front of and behind the camera to stand on its own. He praised Natalie Portman's performance that conveys why it's great to see Jane again, and Christian Bale's striking role that he considered as the closet. Well, get to see him play Pennywise the Clown with a dash of Voldemort, but tethered to the same humility he brings to his most human, humble characters. Okay, Tom Gilchrist of the AV Club graded the film, feeling that it did revisit the cheeky, sentimental tone of the nearly universally beloved Thor Ragnarok and propels its epicness. hero into new adventures that bring full circle of journey that started with the very first, much less beloved Thor back in 2011. He praised Portman and Bale's performances, with the latter's character being considered the most entertaining and sophisticated and sympathetic Marvel adversary since Michael B. Jordan's Killmonger in Black Panther and Watiti's distinctive imagery in the film that may disturb and upset some viewers, outpacing Sam Raimi's accomplishments in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Um, Leah Greenblatt at Entertainment Weekly also gave a similar grade, feeling that although its cheerful melee of starry cameos and jokes and cliff notes mythology feels a lot like franchise fatigue. Um, it also has frequent movements of gonzo charm, thanks largely to the technicolor lunacy of writer-director Watiti, and a cast that seems inordinately game to follow his lead. Okay. Um, follow his lead. Okay. So David Rooney of the Hollywood Reporter stated the movie feels weightless, flippant, instantly forgettable, sparking neither love nor thunder. David Sims of the Atlantic felt the film delivered a usual lightning streaked action and tossed off gags. But this time, there's not enough heft behind the flashiness. He found it a hasty feeling mess of a movie and disappointing given uh, that it's directed by Waititi, although he praised Bale and Russell Crowe's performances. David Fear of Rolling Stone felt the film was oddly unengaging. Even the love and death aspects often feel like transmissions from distant sources. He saw it as a mess due to the collision of competing tone subplots, conceptual big swings, and chaos masquerading as pathos. Eric Francisco at Inverse found Chris Hemsworth Thor in the film becoming Mandarin, left in the purgatory of a runabout tale that makes some sense on paper, but in execution fails to maintain viscosity. Feeling that Marvel doesn't know what to do with the character anymore. He felt that despite striving for an emotional story about loss and love, the movie gets in its own way with tiresome, relentless comedy, distracted plotting, and uneven tone. Richard Rober of the Chicago Sun-Times gave the film 2 out of 5 stars, calling it one of the goofiest and least consequential sagas in MCU history, and allegedly wild and wacky, but ultimately disappointing and disjointed chapter in the ongoing story of the God of Thunder, who seems to get more clueless with each passing movie. Okay, so at the London premiere Q&A in response to the question, how gay will the film be? Watiti exclaimed that it would be super gay. Critics and moviegoers who saw the film expressed disappointment that this statement was false and that Marvel queer baited the audience. Oh shit. Oh man. Jade King of The Gamer felt expectations from queer audiences for prominent LGBTQ plus characters and themes in Thor, Love and Thunder were not met. Writing that the film's creators have been out there talking up the LGBTQ plus representation when it isn't really a massive part of the experience. It's time to temper your expectations and stop letting Marvel continue to queer bait us into disappointment. All right, um, so the Saturn Awards took place on October 25th, 2022. Um, Thor: Love and Thunder got a nomination for Best Superhero Film. Mayas C. Rubio got a nomination for Best Film Costume. Best Film Makeup, Mateos, Sylvie, and Adam Johansson got a nomination. And the People's Choice, which is December the 6th, I'll get back to it when the results are in. Um, yeah, um, yeah. In February 2021, the documentary series Marvel Studios Assembled was announced. The special on this film, Assembled, The Making of Thor, Love, and Thunder, was released on Disney Plus on September 8th, 2022, part of Disney Plus Day. And as far as the future, let's see. So, in regards to the Thor will return tagline at the end of the film, Watiti was unaware it was um, added to the film, stating that it was a surprise to both him and Hemsworth. Watiti was open to directing another Thor film if Hemsworth was also involved, stating the story would need to be something surprising and unexpected, suggesting a low budget road trip film with no fight scenes similar to Nebraska 2013. All right. All right. Let's see. Now that we got that out the way, let's get into the next segment right here. Um, let's get into the next segment right here, man, which is which is the video games chamber. I didn't forget that. And I'm pretty sure neither of you. So here it is. Okay. All right. Now that I'm going to actually continue where I left off. In the last episode, I did cover Sonic Frontiers for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and PC for November 8th. Now we go on to what's coming out November 9th and November 11th. Um, so we have God of War Ragnarok for PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, November 9th. Atari 50, the anniversary celebration, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, Xbox 4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and PC. Also coming out on November 11th is Resident Evil 2. And alongside with Tactics Ogre Reborn. So Resident Evil 2 is for Nintendo Switch only. Um, Tactics Ogre Reborn for PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, Nintendo Switch, PC. Valkyrie Elysium for PC November 11th. Let's get to the review. All right. For more than a decade, Resident Evil has felt like a franchise struggling to find its identity. The excuse me, the seminal Resident Evil 4 put a greater focus on action, but subsequent entries lost their luster. Resident Evil 7 was a major course um, correction, but still felt like a radical reinvention that was finding its footing. Fortunately, Capcom might have finally found the magic once again. This brilliant homage to Resident Evil 2 not only revitalizes many of the survival horror elements that put Resident Evil on the map, it paves a brilliant path for the future of the franchise. In this era, Resident Evil was a pinnacle of survival horror. While the original Resident Evil established a formula, its sequel raised the stakes in nearly every way with tense exploration and nail-biting action. In 1998, Resident Evil 2's action was as intense as its atmosphere was horrifying, so it became a benchmark for PS1 horror. Unfortunately, Capcom's classic has aged about as poorly as a zombie eating corpse. Wow. Capcom's remake gives Raccoon City a much needed facelift, but a new third person perspective does even more to update Resident Evil's action. This remake returns to the series' slower paced roots, thankfully slowing down the shootouts. Um, doesn't diminish Resident Evil's intensity. On the contrary, Resident Evil's action feels better than it has in years, and its smooth shooter controls are incredibly intuitive. Intuitive. Zombies shamble forward like herky jerky wind up toys. These animations are unnerving, but they also create an exciting meta game in which you must time your shots perfectly to hit these brain eaters in the brain pan. If you miss your shot, they keep stumbling toward, no, excuse me, stumbling forward, meaning that even two flanking zombies can pose a challenge if you are off your A game. Resident Evil 2's new visuals also create a darker, more haunting vibe. Um, For those who think Resident Evil has lost its teeth, Resident Evil might be the most intense game in the series. The original Evil 2's bold colors look cartoonish today, but the remake atmosphere is foreboding. Zombie heads pop in a sickening shower of brain bits. Grotesque body horrors skitter across the walls and ceilings. The station's halls echo with steady footfalls. Excuse me, footfalls. Um, I normally have an incredibly steady hand, but Resident Evil 2 had me jumping at the shadows, and I couldn't escape the feeling of being stalked. Resident Evil 2 is also much more than a remake. In a lot of important ways, this feels like a brand new experience. Fans will recognize locations with Raccoon City's police department and its sprawling sewer system, but Capcom cleverly reworked the entire layout so they feel fresh. Many of the environmental puzzles are more realistic, and moments like excuse me, an electrical grid, or looking for environmental clues to a combination lock offer a refreshing break from the action. Another big change from the original name is the removal of the zapping system. In the PlayStation original, players' actions with one character could affect events in a second playthrough with the other character. While the zapping system is gone, this modern update has a mode called Second Run, which allows you to play through the campaign a second time with the other character. These two campaigns don't talk to each other as in the PlayStation game, but the second run challenges you to take a different path through the station. And gives you a few new tools to use in the process, such as a rapid fire revolver that burns through um, high grade ammo. Leon and Claire's stories are also very different, so this feature adds extra incentive to play through the game the second time. Fortunately, both playthroughs felt significantly different, and I was excited to see what happened to both protagonists. Over the years, Capcom has experimented with several different approaches to Resident Evil, but this is one approach I hope gets revisited. Resident Evil 2 not only looks great, it plays well, and it forces you into a series of dark encounters that are a total rush. Resident Evil is finally running on all cylinders. So the concept: retrieve Capcom's classic survival horror game with more than a visual overall. This feels like a new game that plays homage to the original, not a classic, with a new coat of paint. Graphics, its new third person perspective and detailed 3D environments bring Raccoon City's police department to life like never before. Sound The soundtrack is subtle but effective. However, creaking floorboards and other ambient effects do an even better job. An uncomfortable atmosphere. Playability on RE2's action is slow paced but intense. The environmental puzzles are clever and never grow frustrating. And entertainment for Resident Evil fans, this is a must play, but even those without nostalgia for RE2, which is Resident Evil 2, will have a good time. And the replay is very, 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 very high. And I figured I'd do the Resident Evil because Halloween is right. This is right tomorrow. So let me do a little something something real quick though, man. A little something something, man. Hold on a minute here. Um, yeah. How about this one? Yeah, man. I had to play these Halloween sound effects for you folks out there that's celebrating Halloween and stuff. So that's pretty much why I'm playing this right now. So yeah. All right, man. I think that's gonna do it for episode 92. Actually, um, I know I did a little overtime, but I had to actually get that out the way. So, if you're more than welcome to make a charitable donation to my Cash App, which is $ G Money Stacks 555. Once again, you don't need a lot of money to actually show more support. It's all about doing the best you can on whatever amount you are comfortable with. So it's $ G, capital G, lowercase MONEY, capital S, lowercase TACKZ, 555. So yeah. So there you have it right there, though, man. Let me get to the last segment right here, which is stream choices on the go. Let's get it. Let's get it. Hold on, let's get it though. Um, yeah, let's get it. All right, you know what to do. You like what you heard, especially this episode and previous episodes whatsoever. Why don't you go ahead and show some love by following Meticulous Vibe Juice Podcast, the review show, on Instagram, alongside all my other shows, which is Excellent Fun Vibrant Podcast. No, excuse me, Excellent Fun Vibrant Talks Podcast, the Sports Edition show. Um, and which I will be recording that episode 37 in a couple of minutes. And of course, be sure to actually follow my number one show, Off the Meat Rat Chains New York podcast, with 201 episodes already in the books. Alongside of myself is G Money Stacks 555 in Queens, New York. Um, Make sure you turn your notifications on where you can actually know when each episode is going to be dropping. Now, however, I'm probably going to be doing some dropping of each episode probably tomorrow and stuff because of Halloween. I wanted to get episodes 91 through hopefully 96 out the way. So, we'll see what happens though, man. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, so I'm gonna let you know where you can listen to the episodes. And you by going to the link in bio where it says Linktree/Meticulous Vibe Juice Podcast. It's gonna have a whole list of audio streaming platforms, including YouTube, which I will actually get to. And of course, be sure to download these apps. If you don't have them, go download them on your iPhones, your Android phones, iPads, and Android tablets. All right. And you can leave a voice message on anchor.fm/meticulous pod. So speaking of Anchor, that's what we're gonna start with right there. Anchor, Audible, Audacity, Amazon Music, Breaker, Cashbox FM, Deezer, Listen Notes, Moon FM Podcast, Player FM, Pocket Cast, Podfriend, Podopolo, Podorama, Podcast Index, Podcast Addict, Podchaser, Podverse, Reason FM, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, Google Podcasts. Make sure you give a 5-star rating on Podchaser, Podfriends, Apple Podcasts, along with Spotify. Make sure you give it a 5-star rating. It'll be appreciated. And you can listen to Meticulous Vibe Juice podcast review show episodes on Radio Public and alongside with iHeartRadio, the number one app for music, radio, and podcasts. You don't need a credit card and debit card to actually do this. All you need to do is download each of these audio streaming platforms, including iHeartRadio, to your iPhones, your Android phones, iPads, and Android tablets. And make sure you follow my other two shows that's also on iHeartRadio, which is Excellent Fun Vibrant Talks podcast, the Sports Edition show, and my number one show that has 201 episodes already in the books, which is Off the Meat Rack Chain's New York podcast. And of course, last but not least, if you missed any previous episodes whatsoever, everything is already uploaded and posted to every streaming platform whatsoever, and the YouTube channel page of G Money Stacks 555. So make sure you grab that subscribe button for me and click on that noti bell so you can be reminded on when the show goes in the air via live stream. Actually, Meticulous Vibe Juice podcast. Make sure you subscribe to Meticulous Vibe Juice podcast as well. And of course, make sure you subscribe to my other YouTube channel, which is Excellent Fun Vibrant Talks podcast, the Sports Edition show. So make sure you subscribe to all three of my YouTube channels. All right. So leave a like and a comment with the episodes and topics of that's being reviewed, and of course, if you missed any previous and new and previous episodes, don't worry, everything's uploaded and posted to the YouTube channel page of Meticulous Vibe Juice podcast. All right, so share the episodes, share the videos. Make sure you download these episodes. Listen, stream, watch the episodes in case you miss any of them whatsoever. And be sure to actually tell a friend to another friend. Word of mouth is important. And also, be sure to share the podcast along with the link that says Linktree/Meticulous Vibe Juice podcast with your husbands, your wives, your boyfriends, your girlfriends, your friends, and the people you cool with from work or anywhere else where you meet new people. All right. That's gonna do it for me. I'm G Money Stacks. Thank you very much for listening to episode 92, all about Thor. And remember, the grind doesn't stop. If you want something, you have to work hard and earn it. All right? There is no shortcut to this shit, though. You know what I'm saying? And be sure to remember also that New York wasn't built in a day. Find your voice, be yourself, and be confident in what you're trying to do with your craft and your ideas whatsoever. That's very important. And also, also you want to do something that makes you happy mentally, physically, and spiritually. Plus, you also want to have something that clicks to you, that gets you into your zone alongside with tunnel vision, right? I'm up out of here. I'm off this shit. I'm about to eat right now to get re-energized. Thank you so much for listening and streaming and watching. All right. I'll be back with another episode later on. Peace and one love. Enjoy the rest of you. Enjoy yourselves. Be careful out there. Take care of one another. And of course, have yourselves a good Halloween weekend. And of course, Halloween, which is the next day. Be careful out there while you're trick or treating and all the other stuff, while you're getting your candy and costumes and all the other stuff. So enjoy yourselves and enjoy the rest of your Halloween weekend, folks. Later.